everything is upside down, when you're yelling but you make no sound, life is gonna spin you round. Whoa, and get a little bit stranger. When everything is upside down, a tremor in the underground. The nights are gonna take this town. Whoa, and get a little bit stranger, stranger. Push the kinetics, a troubled spirit breaking through. A bitter debt to repay now. But don't you dread it, a friend would never lie to you, helping you get through the pain now. And when everything is upside down, when you're yelling but you make no sound, life is gonna spin you round. Whoa, and get a little bit stranger. When everything is upside down, a tremor in the underground. The nights are gonna take this town. Whoa, and get a little bit stranger, stranger. Lost in the space set behind. Hold out a hand in your mind. Don't have to face it alone. It's in the spaces behind, never watching you. It's in your sight when you're blind. And when everything is upside down, when you're yelling but you make no sound, life is gonna spin you round. Whoa, get a little bit stranger. When everything is upside down, a tremor in the underground. The nights are gonna take this down. Whoa, get a little bit stranger, stranger. Lost in the space set behind. Hold out a hand in your mind. Don't have to face it alone. Lost in the space set behind. Hold out a hand in your mind. Don't have to face it alone.
All right, welcome Blazor fan. We got a couple more showing up in the chat room now. How are you doing today, guys? So last week we did some work with some cascading drop-downs, and things did not go so well as definitely didn't go as planned. So what I wanted to do at the top of the show here was talk about what went wrong and kind of show how I came to the conclusion that it was a bug. It's kind of funny because what I had been working on, I actually had encountered this bug already and reported it with our Telerik team to the ASP.NET team and completely forgot about the fact that it existed and went right along with trying to implement the same thing again and just totally stumbling on the same bug for a second time. I guess that's the kind of thing that happens when you stretch yourself a little thin and work on multiple projects at once. There's only so many plates you can keep spinning and balls you can keep juggling in the air. So here's what happened. If we, so we're working on we're working on components at Telerik UI for Blazor, and we're trying to stick to the actual framework methodologies the best we can. So if you go into the Telerik UI documentation and click on drop-down list, we actually have posted a notice of the same issue that we hit last week. And this has been up there for over a month because we actually submitted this bug during preview 5, I believe. And the fix didn't make it into preview 6, and it's supposed to make it into preview 7. So you scroll way down to the bottom here. It's still open, but it has been fixed in preview 7. So we can expect this issue to go away next week. So after a long and tedious show last week trying to figure out what was going wrong, turns out it was a bug that I knew about all along. I just had completely forgotten existed. So yeah, running out of brain capacity is about right. So I hit a wall, but we did end up with a temporary solution anyway, where we have to set the value expression. This should go away in the next release. So hopefully we can clean this code up next time. Let's see. The next release is supposed to be, I believe, the 23rd. So yeah, I think, and pardon me for a moment. It is seasonal allergy time, so I will be sneezing throughout the show today. I apologize. Back to what I was saying. Preview 3 should ship next Tuesday-ish. Thank you, Bite Me. And we will come back and see if we can fix this code here. In the meantime, let's pull this stuff out and put it into a reusable component. So this drop-down, this set of cascading drop-downs is something that we can just reuse versus having to redo all of this a second time. So that's what I'd like to work on today. Let's take the app and give it a quick run to see what that drop-down list looks like. And then we can figure out how we're going to refactor this thing out. So we have lists of launch locations for our travel app. And those things have child objects that are ports of travel. So if we select Earth, Moon, Mars, we get the second set of drop-downs here. So it's a nice, simple cascading drop-down. And we have two of them because we have the pickup location and the destination. So we need to be able to set both of these. Instead of recreating this a second time, let's go ahead and refactor that out. So I've got a new Git branch here that I'll be working on today. And we've got this input select and validation that's going to need to come out. This is going to be an interesting refactor because I'm not sure how this is going to play with the form part of it. If we take this out and incorporate it into the form. Let's see here. So what we'd probably be able to do, the most simple and easy way to do this, is to start with a component. Let's see, we don't have any components yet. So we need to create a folder here. And let's call the folder components. Let's stop our app from running too so we don't run into any little hiccups with that. Call this one components, and let's do a new, new item. And we will choose Razor component here. Oh, new Visual Studio preview has finally fixed the issue where the component name by default was still CS HTML. Now it's finally .razor, so that's good. So we don't have to rename that. Let's call this one cascading dropdown. This will be a cascading dropdown, but it'll be pretty confined to just our application. It's not going to be something that's going to be too flexible that we can just drop it into any app. I say that because you might, in a cascading dropdown, you may have multiple cascading boxes that pop up. We're not going to get that generic with it. We're just going to have it handle these two drop downs. So let's copy this input select over, and then we can see what type of properties we're going to need for this. We're going to need to pass up, oh, actually, we're going to have a couple of these. This is where things are going to be kind of interesting. It's something I've never tried to do before, but let's just make it easy for this app. Let's copy both of these drop downs here and put them together on this page. Notice I had to take the form group here. That's something I wouldn't normally put in a component that's going to be super generic. But in this case, it's just going to be for our application. So we don't have to rewrite this thing more than once. We'll go ahead and keep the form groups in there. I say that because if you're going to share a component in the wild, you don't want to hard code any like bootstrap type of elements within a component, but this isn't that type of thing. This is going to be a component within our application and not something we'd use outside of it. So it's okay here because we know we've taken a bootstrap dependency on this app, and we're not going to worry about that. So we've got the two input boxes. We should probably pass in our form value, maybe. Let's see. How do I want to handle this? Exactly. Because the input select actually is going to be inside of a edit form. And if we bring the input select into its own component, let's think for a minute. It should be able to get information from that. It should still accept the cascading values that come in from the edit form. So the edit form has an edit context, which is a cascading value. And that should be able to be picked up by the input select even though it's nested within a component still. We need to give it a value, and we need to give it the expression, and those are the same thing pretty much. Let's see if we can figure out a way to reuse that bit and the on changed event. Just trying to reason about how I want to pull this off. And then we're going to iterate over some values, and that's going to help us populate the second box here. So someone showed you how to use onInput to get a cascading value to work with value bind. It worked. And hello all. I'm thinking onInput. So SMABUK is talking about using the onInput event. So the way that works, it's actually kind of hacky. This is why I didn't choose to use that. And what you're talking about is instead of using the changed event, using the onInput event. And this might go down a little bit of a rabbit hole. It's going to get kind of technical. But what happens when you use a component like input select is there is a, I think it's a dictionary that is called additional attributes that gets passed. So if I put a regular HTML attribute on this, let's see, ID's probably not taken, or is it taken? If there is an attribute, you can actually see that additional attributes here, but it's let's see, it is, yeah, a read-only dictionary that gets passed into your component. So if you have something like a data dash value, if I did data dash animation, that will actually get passed into the component and then applied to the select input. So that's the same thing that happens if I do onInput. Is this is not a method that is taken. It's not a method delegate that is taken by the component already. So it will just get passed in. So we're kind of bypassing the component's behaviors and just, we might as well at that point just wire up our own input and handle everything ourselves. So it's kind of a hack. I wouldn't really consider that something that I would use after this patch goes through in Preview 7. So that's the only reason I didn't use that. That was suggested, I think, by possibly Mr. Magoo, SQL Mr. Magoo last week. And I was like, yeah, we could do that, but at that point we might as well just roll our own input select from scratch. So I was looking to see what would be a simple way to reuse these inputs, just to kind of make a quick copy of it so I don't have to have two of them fully coded out on my page. So I've copied one of them into its own component, and I was kind of looking over where I could add some properties to pull this off. And I've got, let's see, I don't know how generic this is going to have to be. We'll have to have the label for dropdown A and dropdown B. Let's start there, actually. That might make it easy for us to kind of figure out where the rest of the stuff needs to be. So I need a code block here. So I need to make some of this generic. And I've got two drop-down boxes. So I've got a parameter, we'll call this one, it'll be a string type. Oops. We'll call it parent name for now. And I say that a lot because naming stuff is hard. I won't play the meme right this minute, but I've got one. It's pretty good. We've got parent and child name. Those will be our we'll call it label. That's what it's going to be. So we have a parent and a child label. Those are going to be here and there. So we can assign those parent label and child label. So there's our two drop-down box labels. Let's see, we need the value, selected value. And let's make another parameter. I'm using paratab tab here. That's a little shortcut. that we can use to create the parameter attribute and a property at the same time. All right, so we're going to say that we want the parent selected value, and then we will also have a child selected value. So instead of the form, we're going to have a, oops, it's going to be parent. And let's see if we can put this here as well. Parent selected value like that. And then our child component here, input. Let's see. We've got a little bit more going on here. This is going to be child selected value. And then this one has also, it's toggling it, whether it's disabled or not. So that's nice. That's something that should be encapsulated in this. The change event will fire, and then we will iterate over some things. That can be internalized here. We're not going to need to pass that in, I don't believe. We still may need to bubble up the fact that the change has happened. We'll see. So I'll save what we have so far. I'm just trying to think through what the next step here would be. Yeah, we're going to have to bubble up the location change event because we need to give it data. And when the data, or when the location changes, we're going to have to give it some child data. Let's see here. So we'll need another parameter of event callback. There's been some hot debate going on whether event callback is the right thing to use or not. I'm going to say it is just fine to use. There's been some talk about whether it is performant or not. And I think the performance tweaks will come from the ASP.NET team later on. So I'm not going to worry myself about it. The performance issues in question are, does it update too many components that are attached to the event? And I think there's tweaks that can be made in the framework that can help alleviate some of that later on. So I'm gonna keep using event callback and see how that evolves. Value. I'm not going to have a specific name here. I'm going to call this one on value changed. And then, actually, hang on. Let's not rename that yet. We need to name the, we're going to bubble this event up. We need something that we can attach to, and we'll call this one on change. Oh, on parent change. On parent changed. So when the parent changed, we'll raise that event. And that is going to be passing in a string as the event args. And we need to then raise that event. So we will call this one handle on parent changed. And this will be responsible for bubbling up that event. So I hope this all works out. I'm still kind of just shooting in the dark here. This isn't planned. I'm just kind of riffing how I think this might work. So if we need to, actually that won't be an event. If we need to change things later on, don't get upset if this all gets scrapped and we wasted a little bit of time, because this is all new to me. So I'm trying to see how effective this would be to encapsulate these two drop downs as a single control. So we're going to handle this method. And it's going to be a void handle on parent changed. It is going to receive a string as the, we'll just call it value, which would be the selected value. Why don't we call it selected value? That way we know exactly what we're dealing with. And when we have that selected value, we'll then bubble up the event. So we will call on parent changed. And then we will invoke async and pass the selected value up the chain. So now when somebody clicks on the drop-down box and it triggers the value changed event, we will then handle it by passing a new event up to the parent. So we'll give that a shot. And then we need the parent values. So we'll need another parameter. I'm going to keep all the parameters together here. And let's see here. This one will be... oh, see, this is interesting. Because if we were going to make this super generic, we would want the list of items to be generic. So this would take a list of T or something like that, or an I collection of T, or something like that. But we don't need it to be that generic, because we're giving this a very specific task here, and that is going to be to just encapsulate these two pick up and drop off locations, and they're always going to be the same type. So these are always going to be, and the component may need to be renamed because it's going to be a little more specific here, but this is going to be an array of locations. And I believe that should be all right. We'll call that locations. And we need a using statement up here because it doesn't know what a location is. Oh no, Twitch isn't alerting you about the stream, Mr. Magoo. That is a shame. Let's see. Why would it do that? You are a VIP and a Prime member. I don't know why it wouldn't tell you. Is there maybe a setting in your Twitch settings, Mr. Magoo, that is not letting that come through? Maybe you've accidentally turned me off for settings. Make sure you're following. Click follow. I think you're subscribing, right? I think you have a subscription. So, interesting. My locations, is that coming from data? Yes. So data should be able to, nope. Location details. Is that what it is? I spelled it wrong. There we go. So location details, and then the parent selected value. We may rename these later because they are going to be pretty specific to this scenario. They're always going to be a location, and they're always going to be a port. So it might have gone a little too generic at first here, but that's okay. That's something we can fix pretty easy. So we have the labels, the selected values, the change event, and the locations, and that does it for the input select the first one. And then the second one is going to be similar. We have the ports. So we need to have the data point for those, and then the that actually should be that's validating the wrong thing. There's a little bug there already. So we also need destination, or I mean location details. This will be port details, and we'll go ahead and call that ports. I know that I said that was probably confusing, but I think we know by now that ports doesn't mean that we're talking about like LPT1 or USB 2 or something silly like that. I think we know what ports mean in this context. We'll go ahead with ports. And we're not going to validate that selected item. We should be validating that there is a child selected value. And that seems to have satisfied all of my red squiggly marks. So we can move on to the next bit. We need to decide. All right, let's see. We have the child selected value. We're just using regular binding on the second box, so there's not as many things going on. Let's go ahead and rename these. So instead of parent label, this is going to be location label, port label, and this will be location selected value and port selected value. So we're not going to make these uber generic. Poke T. I'll just call you Poke. Thanks for following the show. Appreciate that. Nice to have you here. Just doing some Blazor work today. We just renamed some stuff, which is a common theme on the show. Renaming a lot of things all the time. It's a pain, but naming is important. So renaming these guys here. Location. Went super generic at first, but then I realized that's a little too generic for what we're doing here. So location selected value, those are good. Again, with the location. And then we've got our child selected value, which is going to be port label. Port label. Oops, port. Copied too much. Port selected value. All right. So now I've got some stuff here. I don't know how much of the logic I will need. Let's see what we can do with this page. So I'm going back up to my index page now. Let's see if we can replace this guy. So the input select here, that was formerly the pickup location and port of travel. Let's go ahead and comment that out. And we should, and these are wrapped inside of a group, form group already, so we won't need to add another one. I called it cascading dropdown. Let's rename this right out of the gate here and call it location location dropdown with an S. Location dropdowns. That's good enough. And we're not using components yet. We need to put a using statement in there so we have access to that component now. And we should be able to call this location dropdowns, that namespace. We need that full namespace there. Blaze port components, location dropdown. There we go. And this can be a self closing tag. And we have some properties now that we need. So the location label will be form dot selected. Or actually we had a statically named label here. So pickup location. Take the @ symbol off of that. That's just a string. All right. We need the location selected value. This will come from our form dot selected location. And we have our locations will be our, we were binding these originally in our code behind. So we need to go to our code behind, and we may refactor that out, but for now, we will just add our locations there. So like that. I don't know if we need the @ symbol or not. We'll put it there just so we know that isn't a string. And we're actually pulling from that array of locations. And then our ports. So we have a port label will be the port of travel. So this will be port of travel. And then we have our ports, will be at ports. Oh, nope, that's not right. What is this named? We have to look in our code here real quick. It was not ports, it was departure ports on this one. So departure ports, which we need to keep that distinction here because we're going to have two sets of these. So we've got our ports and then our form selected location, port ID. What other values do we have that we need to fill in yet? Port selected value is form dot selected port of travel. So we'll have this, and then we'll have a second one of these that will be our drop-off locations. So this is our pickup location and our pickup port of travel. And we still need to handle an event because we have an event called onChange that triggers the location change and does a query that populates that data. So we still need to handle that parent change. It's still called parent changed in here. Let's change that to, whoa, what happened here? Everything went red here. Why? This seemed to be okay earlier. I don't know why it went nuts now. Location label does not exist in the current context. Well, my. Oh, because I renamed it. That's what happened. I renamed it, and it really made it go bonkers, huh? So, changing that using statement. Nope. Did it throw it off or not? There it goes. Okay. It seems to have gotten its bearings back. All right. Waiting for it to turn red again. I went in there to change the event name. So we can call it handle parent. Well, let's call it location selected. And on location changed. On location changed. So we'll handle that event. on, it still says on parent selected there. I'm going to do a quick build, make sure I don't have any errors. I think this will work for all intents and purposes. It is just encapsulating a little bit of code. Not a tremendous amount here, but it's going to reduce about, let's see, we've got line 30 to 65. It's going to take 35 lines of code down to about six lines of code maybe. And that, I mean, you could consider that one line. That's kind of all one component declaration. So that's not too bad. And then we're going to use it again. So yeah, it's actually taking care of about 60 lines of code, I'd say, and compressing it down to about, well, we'll call it 12. So it's a decent refactor. It's not going to save the world, but it'll at least tidy our code up a little bit. So on location changed, we then can pass in the event that we had before. Oh, we've still got something wrong here. On location changed, like that. We should be able to pass in the on location change. Nope. Is that going to be the right one? I'm getting the argument exception. Open log file. We broke something, so we'll see. And it opens IE to look. That's lovely. Component DLL could not find Microsoft Visual Studio Simulator client. If we run into issues, we may need to reboot Visual Studio to take care of them. Index base, yeah, on location changed. That's the one that I want. This, I'm surprised that is working. That may need to be an expression like this one. Although it's just a delegate. So we'll see how that works out. But I think that might need to be updated. I think that satisfies everything. We'll see if we get any errors. If we do, then we'll work through them. Hopefully we don't. If it's anything like last week's show, there will be tons of them. We'll spend the entire show just fixing things. And then realizing we've already encountered these errors before. So, Mr. Magoo, I know you were a little later to the show. You claim that that you weren't notified. So I won't take it personally. I promise. I'm just teasing. Right. If we go to docs.telerik.com, this is something I talked about very quickly at the beginning of the show. So I had actually encountered that error with our team ages ago and completely forgotten about it. And if you look at our drop-down list documentation for the Telerik UI for Blazor, notice this big red section here, and it reads, I will zoom in because this was the entire topic of our show last Friday. It reads, issue number is preventing value changed handler from working at the moment. The code below will work as soon as Microsoft releases a fix for the problem. Until then, you will get a compilation error due to the handler presence. So we actually wrote this in our documentation, and this was the entire topic of our show Friday. And I had completely forgotten I helped our team with this. And if you go to the issue, somebody reported the bug, and we went through a couple rounds of our engineers going back and forth with Microsoft, trying to let them know what the exact problem was and why it was important to us. So it looks like the fix is in Preview 7, and we won't have to deal with that anymore, but it's kind of funny that I had already seen this and experienced it a second time and completely forgotten that it existed and tried to solve it yet again. Those things happen when you work too much. All right, so what we fixed was this pickup location and port of travel, and if we select an item and we have our second drop down. That is awesome. It worked out of the box. There are no bugs. There are no errors. It was very simple. So the process for getting that that component kind of encapsulated was to go to our index page, copy all of that code out, and put it in a component file. And this is what I love about Blazor. So it took all of this code and encapsulated it in a nice little package. So now our index page is a lot easier to look at and reason about because we don't have all of this code. And what I can do now is amazing. I can hit the delete button and all of that is gone. That whole form set of form groups is gone. And now all I need to do to create another one of these is copy it and paste it. And all of this will go away. And now I've got two of them. And I need to add some new backing fields because this is no longer a pickup location. This is going to be our destination and our port of entry. There we go. Let's change this to, let's change this to depart from, or just call it departure. Departure, destination. I like that. A little bit shorter and easier. Port of travel, port of entry. And then we need on our form, we need to update our form. So under data, is under models, wrong kind of model, form models, our trip configuration, we need to copy port of travel and selected destination. These are now going to be selected. Oh wait, did I already? Hang on. Selected location, selected port of travel, selected destination. We need selected destination. Yeah, let's rename some of these. This is selected departure and destination. Did we call that something else? Yeah. Let's see, destination and entry, departure, port of travel. Departure, travel, destination, port of entry. There we go. Now we have form fields to back these up. And we can change our form to selected departure. Oops. Nope. Selected destination. Selected departure. These will change. These locations and departure ports will change. Actually, locations is the same. The on location change will be different. And the selected port of entry goes here. And let's see, location, selected value, selected destination. That's good, that's good. We need another event because, we need to rename this as well. Selected departure. It didn't rename. Selected departure. Thank you, IntelliSense. You were a big help. Oh, code is running, so that is my fault. I will claim that one. It is all me. and I'm blaming IntelliSense for not doing my work for me. Just got home. What's happening, Mr. Crisanti? We are refactoring our form that we created last week. And I will, since it was such a tedious pain last week, I will explain one more time what happened. Sorry for the repeat, folks, but this was important because it drove us nuts last week. So our value changed issue with a little bit of irony. I have actually experienced it long ago. And if you go to the docs.teller.com, Teller UI for Blazor, this is actually something that I helped our team with. If we go to drop-down list, notice this big warning in our documentation about data binding. There is an issue preventing value changed handler from working at the moment. The code below will work as soon as Microsoft fixes the problem. And then it goes on and explains that you cannot have value changed. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I actually knew about the bug, forgot about the bug, refound the bug. That is what happened. That is my life. But preview 7 looks like it'll be fixed, so yeah. 2 hours of my life and all of your lives I cannot get back, so we shall move on. At least we know, as long as we don't forget again. Now, it should be fixed by Wednesday next week, so hopefully we'll never have to experience that again. If we ever did, we would know where to find it. It is well documented. So, yeah, that's a thing. Hopefully it'll be fixed and we never have to talk about it ever again. Never, ever again, because it's embarrassing that I forgot. So, on location changed, I need another one of these that is going to be very similar, except this one is going to be, instead of the selected departure, it will be the selected destination. And we are going to fill, instead of our departure ports, our destination ports with our selected destination. I feel as if there is some refactoring that could have been done there. These are very similar functions that let's take a look. Let's make a query out of this. So let me undo this real fast. Let's take this out. I don't like repeating code. That is a very bad habit of copying and pasting. So on location changed is going to give us our selected item. Then we are doing a query and using the results of that query to fill our departure ports. So we do need another function to handle and this seems to be the easiest way, in my opinion, on destination changed. We'll take a selected value here, and we want to fill our destination ports. And we also want to set the form value. Because there's no data binding, we need to set the form value to destination. Selected destination is the selected value. But this is the part that is going to be common between this task and this one. So let's create a third function that is just going to be a private task of we will return, it's going to return an array of ports. Yeah. Hello and welcome to the show. Thanks for following. Appreciate the follow from Stand Back Burrito. Fantastic name, by the way. And hello to another person that I can't pronounce your name. I'm very sorry. I'm bad at names, and Twitch names are probably the worst I have encountered anywhere. But thank you for coming to the show. So I can beat up your name. I'm sorry. That's a terrible habit. I need to not do that. So let's see here. I need to return some port details of an array type. And let's see. We need the parent. Let's see. Where do we want to parse the string is also something I need to think of. We'll put it inside there. So this is going to be a string selected value and what is, oh, need to be async. So this is an asynchronous task of port details. Is that not? Port details is a field in, oh, we've already named. No, there should be a type, port details. We can't return the, or, oh, I'm returning a task. Oops. This should be a task of port details. And the name will be get ports by location. And why am I still getting, oh, I'm missing an end curly brace, and we're not doing any work, so that's probably, yeah, lacks an await operator. And actually we don't even need, yeah, we're going to need that because, no, it's all one-liner. It's all a one-liner. We can get away with this. We will do a lambda arrow and await. And we will take the passed in value and return an array of locations or ports. So we can wipe this code out. We'll keep the await. We're still going to need to await, and we will await get ports by location, and we will pass in the selected item. And that should return our array for us. And now that we have that, we can then do the same thing here. Because all we're doing when we select an item from a location is driving that query. So that works for us. And just to make things a little bit easier to read, I'm going to take, I called this one selected value. I like that better. We'll pass it as selected value. And let's move this. Oops, I missed some renamings. I probably could have used, I'm used to being in Razor views, so I forgot I could have just used my refactoring tools for that, but that works. So now we've got on location changed, on destination changed. They both are very easily wired up to the same query. That takes in that ID and passes it back to Entity Framework and gets our array back. There we go. Let's give that a check. And then we'll look see if there's any more little refactorings that we can do. We can set up our delegate now to accept destination changed. And we should have two independent sets of cascading dropdowns. And they both should have their own values. When we select a location, they should populate a drop-down list, and those should not interfere with each other. That's my hopes and dreams, and this will be a great success if it works. Probably oversold that a little bit, but it'd be wonderful if it did work the first time. So we can select Earth. Uh-oh. And we fired 2 delegates together. Why? Why did that happen? What happens if we do this one? Does it do the same thing? This one does nothing? I'm missing something somewhere here. So we've got on location changed. Has to be in the component, I believe. There's something wrong in the component code, maybe? No. It's got to be in the code behind. Yep, there it is. Nope. Destination ports. On destination changed. What did I miss, guys? What did I miss? So I can call, I'm calling the query. Let's see, we're hitting, how are we hitting this function twice? Or maybe it is in the component. Let's take a look at the component, and we handle the location change there. And we have our labels, our location value, our port value. Port selected value is here. Ports gets populated there. Port details. I see it. That's it right there. It should be destination. So we were accidentally populating both at the same time. So that was it. So the second set was still bound to the data of the first set. Now we should be good. We should have both. Once we do this, we're going to have to figure out how to calculate a distance between those 2 locations. This is a very fictitious program, at least for me, because I know nothing about international or intergalactic travel, and I don't know how to calculate properly the distance of, I don't need these breakpoints. I have gnats flying around because it's summer. I'm gonna swat things in front of me because this one keeps trying to fly in my eyeball while I'm streaming. This is my life. So if we are traveling from, say, Cape Canaveral to Mars, I don't know how to get an accurate... Really? I hate summer. Forgot to hit continue here because I've got bugs flying at my face. I can select this item, and my second drop-down list has no effect. Oh, I just did notice another issue, though. I will explain here momentarily. I will explain. All right, so these are working okay. So I have, when Earth is selected, I can select other places to leave from. And for example, if I wanted to leave from Vandenberg Air Force Base, I could. I don't know how to calculate the distance between Vandenberg Air Force Base and the Sea of Tranquility. That is something I'll have to figure out a fictional method of doing. At least like some hard-coded numbers we can just select from and do some basic math. But I'm not going to get into anything crazy and try to figure out the distance at a certain month of the season or anything like that. Anyhow, I digress. another issue I have here is if I select Earth as a departure, I don't want to come back to Earth. These are not like round trip bookings we're trying to do here. So I want to take away. Oh, did it? Is that a bug too? I thought I saw the drop down clear up here when I selected this. Did I just not see that? I'll have to watch back on the stream if I don't catch that. I could have swore that I saw the drop down box clear when I selected an item from here. Interesting. I don't see it happening again. But anyhow, I don't want Earth to be in the selection of destinations. So that will be interesting. I need to figure that one out. I can probably do this with a very simple where statement. I think, maybe. So if I've got a selected location, and this is binding to locations, if instead of binding to locations here, let's go back to our code behind. Control click works beautifully for that, by the way. Let's create a read-only property here. So I'm going to stop this from running. If this works, I'll be very happy. Protected. Oh, wait. Trying to think. This is going to cause more issues. Let's see what it does, but I'm pretty sure this is not going to work. We'll create a read-only property that says this is going to be protected. I think I know the issue already, though. This is going to be of location details. And this one will be called departure. Departure locations. And this was my initial thought, but I think it may be flawed. Is to just return locations dot where the location and ID does not equal the selected. Where's my form data? Form dot selected departure. And is that a string? It is. All of this int to string to whatever is annoying. So we will parse that out. But I think there's going to be a small issue with this. This won't be as quick and easy as I had hoped. To array. So we'll pop that back into an array, minus the location that we select. But I think events, there's going to be an event that happens that's going to interfere with this working. And that will be when we select a child item and then go back and select another item from our location. Back and forth will cause the child drop-downs to go out of sync, possibly. Because now we're cascading, but now we're relating two different selected items together. So I can select Earth, and that gives me these. And oh, it didn't even change that. That isn't... Oh, I didn't bind that. Duh. Fatal last words. This will be easy. 4 hours later. So I need to change my locations